This is Worldview from WBEZ. I'm Steve Bynum, and today for Jerome McDonnell. The 29th Polish Film Festival in America kicked off last week, and this year at the fest, they will honor Polish film legend Krzysztof Zanussi. And we're lucky to have Mr. Zanussi with us for a chat with film contributor Milos Stehlik of Facets. Take it away, Milos.
Hey, Steve. So, Krzysztof, your most recent film, which you're showing here, Revisited, is an autobiographical film. Second time that you've gone into an autobiographical theme. And my question is why? Suddenly at this stage of your life, do you feel a need to, you also wrote a book, to revisit?
Well, I think it is very natural that old people, and I consider myself a dinosaur because I'm almost 80, so naturally I am looking back on my life and I revisit what can be revisited. I was happy to find many of my actors alive, so I thought I will shoot some kind of a sequel, but not a sequel in a real sense, in a conventional way, but to show old films as a flashback to interviews which I am taking today. And I did it for my 75th anniversary. That was an opportunity to make such a film in few days, in fact, because there is a very short shooting period. We have long flashbacks, and they fulfill the time. And it was, to me, also a chance to refresh my memories and to see how my view changed in meantime, especially when I was myself.
How did it change? How did it change?
For example, in my film that won me a prize of Best Director in Cannes, so the film, which was probably very important in my career, I realized after years where I was wrong. And I am very self-critical now, seeing that my leading character, who was such a perfect kind of hero, now I don't see him as a perfect creature. I think he was not human enough. And this is my revision, my revision of my view. I see it differently.
And the actors that you go to visit are really the great actors of Polish cinema. Maja Komorowska, Daniel Olbrychski, Jan Nowicki, Zapasiewicz. So these were like really leading lights of Polish cinema generally for many decades.
Right, and I come back to the films which were shot 50 years ago, and it is only possible in cinema that you can confront the same person in 40 years. And what is written on the face is not a makeup, it's a real transition of time. Time is passing and something is left on our wrinkles, on our faces. And to me, it was most exciting element of this experiment.
Well, but time is a concept in physics, which is how you started out. And your early films, in a way, dealt very much with these kind of ontological issues, large issues of introspection, of science, of the role of the individual in society. And so how did that progression go? I mean, from physics to philosophy to film?
Well, don't ask me, because I'm not aware what happened to me. Nobody is really aware. I know that my love for physics is still strong, but physics never loved me. So I realized after 4 years that this is not my real vocation. I'm still very excited about progress of physics and about what happens, what has been revealed recently. And I think we are really starting a new epoch that will change our outlook on life, because the deterministic world of Newton is over. And the Enlightenment is also linked to this period. It is all over. We have a new opening to the, let us say, world of probability, which will be very different when there is more place, more room for mystery. So also for supernatural, if you want. This is probably the new turn of events, but, humanistic science is always a little bit behind.
But in a way, the issues that you dealt with, which is going back now to 50 years, beginning with some of those films, are really the issues which are very dominant and even more critical for science today, because they are the issues of responsibility, of what responsibility to human life does a scientist have.
Yes, because that was something I felt was crucial 50 years ago, and it's very important today. I'm now shooting a new film, which is called Ether, and it is about somebody who has mistaken science for religion. And religion is a very different thing. I'm a religious myself, but I find it very dangerous where people mix or when they confuse both.
So how did you still didn't answer my question of how you got to film?
Oh, well, I made some amateur films. I got some prizes, and as a young man, I studied philosophy in the meantime when I understood that physics doesn't love me. And then I was making some amateur films, and these amateur films got some prizes. And when you are a young man, you desperately need some sort of confirmation. Some other people must tell me that what I do is good, because I'm not sure. And I think I managed to find confirmation. But after 3 years, I was kicked out from the film school. So it was again a test to what extent I'm really convinced that I must make films. And later on in life, I got many fantastic offers to change my biography. With the change of regime, I was invited to be a member of the cabinet. I was invited to be an ambassador of Poland. And each time I refused, saying, film is the dearest I have, and I don't want to abandon it.
You're listening to Worldview on WBEZ. I'm Milos Stehlik, in today for Jerome McDonnell, and we're talking with Polish filmmaker Krzysztof Zanussi. He's in town as the honoree of this year's Polish Film Festival in America, the largest exhibition of Polish cinema outside of Poland, and the festival runs through November 19th. History is very important in Poland because Poland's gone through many, many historical changes. So how have you seen in the 50 years, almost 60 years really, if you count your amateur years of filmmaking, how have you seen your work respond to these historical changes?
Well, I think this is the good question if addressed to a critic, because I am not critic of my own work. I hope I reflect all these changes in my films, and they are very often related to some political and social events. But artist is never aware what he is doing, and I don't want to pretend that I know what I'm doing.
Well, I think you know very much what you're doing.
Well, when you know too much, you become a propagandist. You're making films which are not really spontaneous, and they don't come really out from your heart. And that's the secret of art. We have to be sincere and a little bit blind. When we know, then we should send an SMS instead of making film.
You know, it was interesting. One thing which I didn't know until recently is that your first student film, like a diploma film, was based on a J.D. Salinger story.
Right. Well, we had no problems with author rights because it was a student film. And I was so excited about this beautiful novel that I filmed it without ever being in America at that time. So my vision of American dormitory at a university is absolutely unrealistic. But I thought it has to be very modern, so I did it like a modern hotel, forgetting that this is not a real fact. But that was an adventure, and of course I did it in Polish, and then there's a short 15 minutes long story.
So was American culture, which American jazz in particular for many artists in Poland and Eastern Bloc countries was a tremendous influence. Was America in some way an inspiration to you? Or
very much so, because it was always a legend that America is a country of chances and of freedom. And I think it is a correct view. America is a country where people have more chances than probably in old Europe, and that people have chance to shape their life as they want, more as they want than in Europe, when everything is more structured and when history is pending on us very heavily.
So this cinema, which was called Cinema of Moral Anxiety of the 70s, 1980s, which you were part of in some ways with many other colleagues, it was really kind of a shock when, after the triumph of Solidarity, Polish cinema and many of the other former communist countries kind of struggled to find new themes.
Well, but we did struggle with success. Remember that Kieślowski, who became world success, started his world career after the fall of communism. He did his films before, but they were not so well known. And I think we had a continuity, what is a great achievement, in big part thanks to late Andrzej Wajda, our leading director, who was always trying to educate, to form next generation. So there was no generation gap between older and younger filmmakers. We felt we are continuing something. And I think our dialogue with the public is still very, very effective. People watch Polish films. We have very good numbers. Our cinema, very often criticized, but is watched. So that's the biggest thing we can have.
Well, I was thinking about like these attempts to make pseudo-Hollywood blockbusters. That it was a lot of like the Pigs, for example. I mean, all these kind of policiers. I mean, this was kind of a shifting from...
Oh, yes, and there are many films like that made, and they are also attracting the public, so they are not done in vain. But I think what is the core of Polish cinema is cinema that is more problematic, that is touching more itching problems. And this cinema has also its followers, and I think that this festival in Chicago has picked up very courageously very interesting and very unusual films. I would strongly recommend them to the viewers because that's a very good selection.
Well, and the other side of this is that in the last few years, there are many, many young talents who have come on the scene who are really kind of very energetic. And so to me, Polish cinema is really coming alive in the last few years. And is that a result of people like you teaching or?
Well, it would be very nice to assume as this honor. I think there is something that we had avoided, this generation gap. But there's also relatively good law for cinema. We have some public money which is not from the budget of the state, but which is collected, like in France, a certain percentage of all publicity on television and all admissions to cinema. So we have funds, and that helps a lot national cinema.
What do you see as the important themes that you've tackled and that you want to tackle?
Well, if I can. I'm hesitant because when you formulate it, it becomes immediately kind of a slogan. What I'm looking for is, all my life long, is to find some sense in my own life and in the universe that surrounds me and in historical processes that I'm watching. I try to avoid chaos because chaos leads me to desperation, and chaos is something that is tragic. So if there is any sense in human life, then I remain optimistic, and I try to share my optimism with the others. So even if most of my films are rather sad, like my latest film will be quite sad because it shows that after death there may be something. So for somebody who has sold his soul, and that's the story, it's a Faust story, it is a very bad revelation. He sold something what he thought has no price. And suddenly he realizes, no, there will be something after death, and it may be bad.
Well, but also all of your characters in some ways struggle always with conscience.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Oh, yes, because moral issues are key issues of our life. This is price of our freedom. We take choices. We choose between good and evil, and sometimes we don't know how to distinguish one from another. And what is our egoistic desire, and what is our altruistic vocation? So between these two, all our life is torn between these two extremes, and I think I continue talking about it in my films.
And the new book, you just published is an autobiography?
There is no my autobiography, but then I wrote another book, which is kind of I have some lectures in many universities, also in some American universities, in Notre Dame University, for example, and I was lecturing about life. So I made a book about life in its various forms, and I was illustrating this book with some fragments of my films, trying to point out that we are in permanent quest of sense. And that's what is the book about.
But so in a way, all of your films, the other part of the conscience is that you really invest all of your characters and man with an ability to solve the human problem.
Well, but sometimes they solve them erroneously, and that's one of the dramas of our life.
You're listening to Worldview on WBEZ. I'm Milos Stehlik, and we've been speaking with Polish filmmaker Krzysztof Zanussi, a body of work that spans how many films? 70 films?
Almost, when you count all television and shorts.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.